Welcome to the Critical Media Studies Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike Rapici
and Barry Falk.
Dr. Rapici.
Dr.
Good to
Falk.
see you again for episode 101. This is our second episode, not our second episode, obviously, in all, considered from all time, but our second episode on Martin Heidegger's lecture, The Thing, published in Poetry, Language, and Thought a couple decades ago, although there is a relatively new edition that has been brought out. And in our last episode, if you're interested in jumping in, or what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to do kind of a close reading of his argument where he tries to define what is a thing in this episode. However, in our last episode, we should note, Michael, how would you describe it? We talked about some of Martin Heidegger opens up with this argument about this claim about nearness and its relation to technology. And he wants to question whether or not technology has truly brought together, or rather allowed us to traverse and connect distances, the distances that separate us from other people and from other places. And we talked about some of the implications of his philosophy, his critique of technology and technologism. But we're not going to do that in this particular episode. We're going to actually talk about what is a thing. But do you have any other comment on that before we just get at it?
No, I would just say that I think that last time was essentially table setting for today. So
setting for today.
If you're jumping in without hearing the discussion from last time, it's probably good to go back and listen to that first. But
well put. So let's get to it. If we've done all our table setting in the last episode, let's get into Martin Heidegger's discussion of the thing. Now I'm going to pick up by, and if you have the old-fashioned, I think late 60s, early 70s edition, and if you have the more modern edition, I'm reading on page 166, 167, 168. I think most in the more recent edition, the passages that I'm reading are starting on 164 in that particular edition. Poetry, Language, and Thought, translated by Albert Hofstadter. But so if you're following along at home, you can take a look at the passages that we're going to move briskly through here. But let's get at it. So the first paragraph I wanted to look at is where he returns to that concept of nearness, but then says, rather than just assume just one more bit of table setting, before he had been, see the previous episode for more on this, Martin Heidegger had been criticizing the idea that technology has necessarily connected us to things and us to the world and us to each other, even though we have incredible means of rapid communication and also machines that allow us to move at great distances. He was thinking that nearness is still a problem. And he mentions, and I'm going to pick up at a paragraph where he talks about nearness. But in this paragraph, he moves basically he had been saying that nearness, we only have a simulation of nearness. We haven't really achieved nearness yet. But to achieve a better idea of nearness, we have to know what things are, what the things that surround us, what the things that are near to us really are. And he will, starting in this paragraph that I'm about to read, he's going to use the homely example of the jug. And he will go through a couple paths. And so a couple passes. And so we're going to do that as well. He's going to go through a couple passages where he says, okay, let's see if we can really figure out what it would be like to experience things in proximity. And so the first thing we need to do is figure out what is a thing. And then he's going to go through several passages where he says, well, we might think of a thing in this way. And then we might think of a thing in this way. And then finally, at the end of the passages we're going to work through, Martin Heidegger will have the big reveal. And he's going to tell us, well, now this might be a way where we can finally, because he kind of feels we haven't done that yet, we just think we have. We might finally, if we follow Martin Heidegger's methods, we might finally be in a position where we can have approximate relation to things because we understand the being of things in the world. Okay, too much table setting. Let's do the reading. Right. What about nearness? How can we come to know its nature? Nearness, it seems, cannot be encountered directly. We succeed in reaching it rather by attending to what is near. Okay, so far. So that's how he's going to get to things. Near to us are what we usually call things. But what is a thing? Humans, have so far given no more thought to the thing as a thing than he has to nearness. The jug is a thing. What is a thing? Okay, so here we have the first definition. Let me read this, and I'll submit it for discussion. Okay, so the jug is a thing. But what is the jug? We say a vessel, something of the kind that holds something else within it. The jug's holding is done by its base and its sides. Okay, I said I would stay in that paragraph, and let me just go a little bit further because I think he's still working through this definition. So that's his first proximate definition. The jug is a vessel, something that holds something. So next he will add to that. The jug remains a vessel whether we represent it in our minds or not. Okay, I'm moving into the next paragraph, Michael, and I think we're getting to a point of discussion. So his first, and I think I just caught this in reading it. So his first definition of the jug as a thing, as a vessel, he kind of wants to stick with it. And so in the next paragraph, he writes, the jug remains a vessel, whether we represent it in our minds or not. As a vessel, the jug stands on its own as self-supporting. But what does it mean to say that the container stands on its own? Okay, let's stop right there.
So I think I want to just back up a hair, because the language and the I think that Heidegger is necessarily complicated here. Not complicated. How was this? Necessarily potentially confusing because of the distinction that he's trying to make between what we would consider something ordinary, pedestrian, a jug, right? And what he's really trying to get at, which is our relationship to the things around us. And so you say a thing and its thingliness, that's very confusing. And I think especially if you're following this without the text, it can be. So I want to say that what I understand here is at the core of this, beyond the noun that is the thing, whatever you choose it to be, right? What Heidegger to me is really teasing out is this tension between our mindfulness and our awareness of our surroundings and the rapidity of technological life and the sense to sort of just to see something, to see through it for its function, and then to label it as that thing, which is why that line, the jug remains a vessel, whether we represent it in our minds or not. The idea there is that he's shifting sort of the human subjectivity to the side a little bit and
absolutely that's brilliant.
That's right. So you can say, look, you can choose to acknowledge this or not,
right?
That doesn't define it.
Still the jug has that ontological character. Basically, it doesn't matter what my subjective or your subjective appreciation or interpretation of it. Heidegger is wanting to say there is something about the vessel nature, the fact that the jug holds something that is kind of crucial to the ontology, to the being of the object,
Without
regardless of my subjective
right,
impression
right, and
or
that's
yours.
and I think that's at the core. Like the decision to focus on the jug
Right.
is very very clearly an intentional one because it is the least technological, most
Perfect.
most
Perfect.
enduring sort of banal object that
Banal, and the banality is absolutely the point, right?
yeah, it's integral to this, right? Because
Right.
you have the choice to see it as this functional object and to misplace its function for its to resist its becoming an object. And I think his point is, and as he gets to as he develops the essay around the jug more, is this notion of gathering and pulling everything together. But it is
Absolutely.
decidedly untechnological, right? And that to me I think is the interesting thing. So this is this bit that you've identified here is really about the I think the separation between the human gaze and the need to dominate and the
He's saying that no matter, despite that directing gaze or our intentions, the jug remains a vessel.
right regardless of what like and that I think is where it stands on its own, right? This
Right.
idea that things are self-supporting, that the jug does not need your approval to
The
be a jug.
jug does not need your proposal, your approval. Did I cut you off, or
No,
did
no,
you
not
want
at
to
all.
say?
I think that was just that's my takeaway from this is that
Well, I want to thank you there because I did not set this up very well, but you performed brilliantly. Now I'm going to try to give you better support in your commentary because I'm going to go ahead a page and I'm going to read a paragraph that I think basically Heidegger is iterating your distinction, where I think uh, Heidegger makes it pretty clear that he's saying what you were saying. It's a kind of restatement of what you just said.
mhm.
So I think you just articulated a key point, which is it doesn't matter about my presence or approval or even my presence in the scene. It doesn't matter about my subjectivity or the imposition of my will or where my will is being exerted here. There is something fundamentally vessel-like about the jug.
And
And
that I
so, yeah,
just to
sure,
if we
sure.
haven't already tied it, I think that's why he starts this with the discussion of nearness, because
Mhm.
he says to be near cannot be encountered directly. We succeed in reaching it rather by attending to what is near. It's this. I mean, you think of like meditation or mindfulness, where you simply observe something for what it is, and in doing so, you suspend that need to dominate. You
Mhm.
suspend that
Mhm.
need
Mhm.
to make this a part of the standing reserve and all that. It's like
Mhm.
no, just to be near is to be mindful, and that is different than being authoritative in this or to be how do I want to say this to organize and categorize. It's like this. It's this. I think this human tendency to
Well, I think I would go, and I think you were already saying this. I was going to go further and say it's the problem almost is our human subjectivity is kind of the problem, is kind of what keeps us from realizing the nearness of near things. And
yeah.
technology is an imposition in Heidegger's read. Heidegger feels that technology is most often an imposition of our will and our subjectivity on the world.
I think that's it. I'm trying to think of a way to explain this in a more
Mm-hmm.
sort of similar to his terminology with like
Mm-hmm.
nearness. It's kind of like he wants us to be aware of something without the authority of knowing something, right? Like to say I know
Absolutely.
something is to wall it off. This is A, not B. And that's so this anyways, this idea about nearness is sort of just this idea about harmoniously being with as opposed to controlling or dominating. And that,
And but you used another word a minute ago, and I want to get back to it. You used the word categorize. That's another sort of impulse of the subjectivity of the will to command.
yeah.
The idea that I'm going to categorize this particular object. So let me rush ahead to the paragraph on the next page where I think he is sort of letting the jug be
A
and
jug.
talking. The jug is a thing as a vessel. It can hold something. So he's trying to break it down. He's trying to see or regard the jessel, the jug as a vessel, uh, the jug as a thing in and of itself, with kind of sans human. I mean, this is the kind
Well,
of post-human aspect of it. Except, or you're going to say, but it's holding something for humans.
no, I mean, I think there's a relationship there that's implicit, but it's not
Sure,
one. I mean, his
of
next line
mastery.
in that paragraph is to
Yeah,
be sure the container has to
has
be
to be
made,
made.
right? So
Has to be
you
made.
don't have the jug as it exists as a jug
Mhm.
without the human.
That's true. That's true. And rather than I broke up my reading in order to comment. So let me read here, and then we can comment. Uh, to be because that's really crucial. To be sure, the container has to be made. You're right. That's
Hmm.
a sort of reassertion or insertion of the human, but its being made by the potter in no way constitutes what is peculiar and proper to the jug, insofar as it is a thing, insofar as it is qua jug. The jug is not a vessel because it was made by humans. The jug had to be made because it is this holding vessel. Wow,
Now,
that's a really interesting paragraph. Can I just say, don't you think he's doing a dance there
I,
between the human and the non-human, right?
I have a question for you about this
Yeah.
because this is a very teleological argument that I'm not entirely
Oh,
comfortable with. I'm not, or and that's I'm
yeah.
sure, right? The jug is not a vessel because it was made. Rather, the jug had to be made because it is this holding vessel. So, as I'm understanding that, he's saying, look, the jug before it attained or became a jug, before it
Yeah.
attained its jugliness, right?
It always
Was
had to be a jug.
it was
It
it was a
always had to be a
it
jug,
was a
right?
jug before the human got to it. In a way, the human is no different than the rain carving out the Grand Canyon over, like this was just a thing that was going to be. And so, in a way, that fits with the way I understand Heidegger is trying to place all things, human and non-human things, into a place where they are revealed for what they are under the appropriate
Right.
circumstances, right?
Right.
So in this way, you can say, well, the jug has been discovered. It's been revealed as its jug through the potter's hands. But I don't know, man. Is that what we're doing here?
Uh, well, I don't know. I think I think that's a great reading of what he's saying here. And I think you also articulated what might be most people's objections to this, because
Well,
I do think yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead and finish. I'll write my little note down here.
Well, what I was about to say is, well, I don't know if I was about to say anything important. I was about to move to the next paragraph because I think it'll be, I wanted to mark your comment because I do think I think you expressed it exactly right. He's thinking about the jug, and even though he concedes the jug is something made by humans, what's more important to him is that the jug is something that is revealed on earth in the human context. And there's something about the revelation of the jug as a vessel that is really what interests him. And you're right. That there's a lot of metaphysical baggage that comes in with that. I thought, but let me read the next
Yeah, I see.
paragraph and
Right.
see he works this vein for a little bit. And so let's let him have his way, and then we'll comment on it, because I think we'll be returning to the same issue. The making, it is true, the human making lets the jug come into its own. So, okay, the human is important. I see one of the things that's going on in that sentence. He's saying, well, the human element in this is important. The human element in this is important because the making of the jug is what lets the jug be a jug. But that which in the jug's nature is its own is never brought about by its making. Now, that sentence he is denying, and that is controversial, that the human making is constitutive. And, basically, he is saying what you're saying, and he's sticking to it. Let's go a little bit further and see if we have another thing to comment. If not, we'll jump to Mr. Plato and why Plato got it wrong.
Right.
But let's see. Now, released from this making process, the self-supporting jug, he doesn't use the word in the sentence, the revelation, but I think you are right to use it. I think that's what he's talking about. Now, released from the making process, the self-supporting jug has to gather itself for the task of containing, which, of course, it's his main task because it's a vessel. In the process of its making, of course, the jug must first show its outward appearance to the maker. So humans are important, but he comes back with a but. But what shows itself, what reveals itself, right?
Right.
What reveals itself here, the aspect, the ethos, the idea of the jug characterizes the jug only in the respect in which the vessel stands over against the maker as something separate from the maker, as something that the maker made, as something to be made. Couple comments. I have a comment. I'd like to hear.
You go first here.
Well, there's a lot of baggage here, so even though it's interesting, right? He wants to get close to things and escape metaphysics. That's basically the Heideggerian project, because in Being in Time, he came to the conclusion that Western metaphysics was barking up the wrong tree, wasn't thinking about emergences and revealings and truth in the clearing and all these things. So, and he felt that he also argues that Plato and then later Kant, that basically metaphysics of truth and presence were fallacious. And so he's trying to get back to objects, and he's trying to sort of uncover or reveal, rather, a kind of primordial reality. There's a lot of metaphysics, but there, as you say, there's a lot of metaphysics going on. Let me say one thing. Okay, so just in general, I just was conceding what you were observing. There's a lot of metaphysics here. I'll make a separate point now. A separate point is one of the things he says, and he'll go on in the next paragraph, which we might read or might not read. Maybe we'll go to another one. But one point that he brings up in that last sentence I read that he's going to return to in the next paragraph is that the appearance of the jug, which is what science deals with.
Right.
Science will say, well, once the jug is a discrete object, I can taxonomize the object, right? Correct. I know it's a jug because he made it, right? She made it. And so I can identify it. I can taxonomize it. I can apply it to a concept. This is a good jug. This is a bad jug, right? He wants to say that before any of these mental operations occur, that one thing that is, I think, fundamentally flawed or limited by all these judgments based on appearance is that he feels that the being of the jug doesn't depend on the appearance, and the being of the jug is to hold things.
It is. Now, here's where my question is, and you just left that for me nicely. I think my concern here is tied to a terminological interpretation, right? That's just how I'll say it. So we've run through this like 5 times. I'm going to read through it quickly to identify where I think where I'm getting stuck here. So the jug is a thing as a vessel. It can hold something. Fine.
Right.
And he gets through, made by the potter no way constitutes what is peculiar and proper to the jug insofar as it is qua jug. The jug is not a vessel because it was made, rather it had to be made, right? So this idea that what is central to this jug is its nature as a vessel of some sort.
Absolutely right,
Okay,
and not its
so
appearance,
right,
and
and
not its appearance.
not its connection to human. It's
Also true.
more right. So now we
Also true.
say the making it's true lets the jug come into its own, but that which is in the jug's nature is its own, is never brought out by its making. So the nature of the jug is implicit to, I don't know that he's saying to the jug because it was maybe always a
Hmm.
jug. It is to the things
Hmm.
that come together. It is to the gathering. And so here's my question about
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
Now released from the making process, i.e., you've been made a jug, this self-supporting jug, right, which does not self-supporting, it does not need the human to achieve
Doesn't
its
need a human.
thingliness, right?
Right. Right.
Has to gather itself for the task of containing. So we're talking about a jug and the task of containing and the function of the jug as a vessel. My question here is, how does he mean this? Is it as a vessel to contain liquid, or is it as a conduit, a mechanism by which we gather the essence of whatever that constitutes the material that this jug is and brings us all together? I'm wondering if he's here connecting to his notion of gathering, and that our mindfulness is not about the jug as a container that a man or woman made, so much as it is a oneness and an awareness of our environment.
We
So
are.
we
We
have
are.
to look,
Yeah. Yeah.
at whether we're talking about the thing containing all of these elements, or is it the thing's ability to contain water? Is it a vessel for history and context, or is it a vessel for liquid?
I think that in the passage I'm about to read, and also in the later part of the essay, he is decisively saying, well, there's a little bit of a confusion because the containing and the fact that it does contain water or wine,
Right.
uh, certainly he's not interested in the contents. He is interested in the jug's ability as a vessel to contain things. But I think he is moving exactly to what you wonderfully described, Michael, that he want to, and I'll try and state it. I'll try and state it simply if I can. What he is wanting to get to is by focusing on the jug. So in these passages that we're reading today in this episode, he is going to be defining the jug, qua jug, to use his word. And he's going to try to describe or provide a better description than metaphysics and philosophy or science has given it, in his mind, has given it the jug. He's going to try to do that. But so there is going to be a lot of emphasis on, in the passage I want to read next, the jug's void. The jug contains a void. There's an emphasis on sides and bottoms. There's an emphasis on the jug as a vessel. But where he wants to go to, I think you really eloquently described. He wants to finally say that the containing, once he I think that's like the terminus point of the essay.
Mm-hmm.
Once he's defined the jug as a jug, he wants to say, okay, in order to get near to things, you have to realize that you, not just a jug,
Mm-hmm.
but you and the jug coexist on, to use his favorite words, where he gets crunchy granola at the end of the essay. You exist on earth under a sky. So
Right.
it's an environment. He's
Mm-hmm.
moving. So there in the passages we're talking about in this episode, it's going to be a lot of jugness, a lot of vesseling, a lot of containing, and a lot of voiding.
Right.
But where he's going to go, and I think you're going to see it already in the next passage I read, where he's going to go is exactly where you describe.
Right.
He wants to talk about environment. And finally, he kind of wants to put humans and things on the same plane of Earth.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go there.
Well, I mean, I think he's moving to that. So really, we got one or two things left to do, I think, for our podcast today. And this next paragraph, he's going to get more into the jugness of the jug and the way in which the jug is a thing. And I think we're going to see a little bit of the ways his purpose in doing that is not just to say, wow, jugs are cool. And jugs have a thing separate from the human. He wants to get to something. I think this is the prescience of the essay. There is a way in which he doesn't use the word network. He doesn't even use the word environment that I remember.
Right.
But he's sort of pushing toward an environmental understanding, toward an understanding of networks, of the human and the object as being kind of on the same plane. But there's going to be a necessary critique of science's inability. That's another very important thing of this essay, because it began with that critique of science and technology and the subjectivizing of the world. But, so after his description of sides and bottoms of a jug, which I'll get to, he's going to go very importantly, and this is kind of crucial, he's going to say, science can't get us to the sides and bottoms, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let me go to the next step. Sides and bottom, of which the jug consists and by which it stands, are not really what does the holding. But if the holding is done by the jug's void, then the potter who forms sides and bottom on his wheel does not, strictly speaking, make the jug. He only shapes the clay. No, he shapes the void. For it, in it, and out of it, he forms the clay into the form. From start to finish, the potter takes hold of the impalpable void and brings it forth as a container in the shape of a containing vessel. The jug's void determines all the handling in the process of making the vessel. The vessel's thingness does not lie at all in the material of which it consists, but in the void that holds. That's really a kind of stunning paragraph. Do you want to take a take on it? You don't?
I mean, so this is really nicely done in the sense that he provides a tangible example of revealing, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Of the revealing. And so if something's essence, if something is revealed, like we have the clearing here, right? And the potter is the one who, in shaping the jug, the jug does not create the void. The void is always there. What is happening is that the potter, in shaping the physical jug, reveals the void.
Reveals the void. And that's the purpose of the container. That
Correct.
is the container. That is the jug.
Right.
That is the jug. Okay, well, yeah, that's it. The jug is in fact the emptiness. The jug isn't a thing. The jug's thingness consists in the fact that it is a void that holds. Now, part and parcel of this essay is that as soon as he gives you, that's a pretty good description of where he's going with his definition of the jug as a thing. Now, he will immediately interrupt himself, but the interruption is kind of crucial to the purpose of the essay.
Yeah.
To say that, okay, I've been talking about voids. Science would have come in and say, well, that void is an emptiness. And what Heidegger has been saying, no. That's a void. But the void in this case is not an emptiness. It is literally the thing that makes the thingness of the jug. It is the thing that makes the jug, that makes the jug a jug.
Right.
But science will look at the emptiness and look at the appearance, and it's going to miss all this. So necessarily after he gives you his technique, we have a digression that's a very purposeful digression where he says, science is going to miss all this. And that's part of the problem. Quote, physical science assures us that the jug isn't even really empty. It's filled with air and with everything that goes up to make the air's mixture. We allowed ourselves to be misled by a semi-poetic, Heidegger would say philosophical way of looking at things when we pointed to the void of the jug in order to define its acting as a container. But, and now I'm going to skip a couple paragraphs. It is said that scientific knowledge is compelling, certainly. But what does its compulsion consist in? In our instance, it consists in the compulsion to relinquish the wine-filled jug, i.e., the thing is a thing, the jug qua thing, and to put in its place a hollow that is no longer a jug, but a hollow within which a liquid spreads. Science makes the jug thing into a non-entity in not permitting things to be the standard for what is real. Science, one more sentence, and then and I think we have a comment. Let's stop to discuss. Science is knowledge, which is compelling within its own sphere, the sphere of objects. Already had annihilated things as things before the atom bomb exploded. Wow, Michael, I think.
Read the next sentence. Read the next
okay,
sentence.
I will do that, but I'm about to say we probably could end our episode if we discuss these 2 points, this movement here. And so let me read it again. I'm going to read that paragraph again, including the sentence you mentioned. Science is knowledge which is compelling within its own sphere, the sphere of objects, already had annihilated things as things long before the atom bomb exploded. The bomb's explosion is only the grossest of all gross confirmations of the long since accomplished annihilation of the thing, of the object, right? The confirmation that the thing as a thing remains nil. The thingness of the thing remains concealed, forgotten. The nature of the thing never comes to light. That is, it never gets a hearing.
So my take
go ahead. Yes.
is he's basically saying, okay, science, there's a scientific explanation for this. And he's not discounting science. He's not saying this isn't right. But what he's saying is that science, in its need to clarify, quantify, what's the word I'm looking? Anyways, misses the cultural significance of things in its quest to objectify everything that we have. And that in doing this, we are annihilating the thing. And as I'm thinking about this now, this notion of the thing and thingliness is if we look at his assertion that it's the void that is revealed, it's not the jug around it, it's the void that is revealed that is make it. Our sense of nearness, or our ability to be near things, is tied up with our understanding that these things exist outside, our acceptance, not our understanding, our acceptance that these are things that exist outside of us in a way. And the domination of science removes that relationship. Like, understand these things exist outside of me, establishes a sort of relationship with them. That relationship creates the context that is what that void reveals. We understand the relationship between the space and the object, and that's how this functions for him. So science is annihilating that in the sense that it is reducing everything to purpose, and it is explaining everything. There is no revealing, there's an explanation.
Wow, that's it. That I think that's our terminus point, because I think in that particular phrase, I'm not cutting you off, but I'm just saying that I think really is the major point of the essay. And in fact, you can restate it. Do you remember that last comment you made? Because I think that was the resonant word.
Oh, about
the resonant word.
Explaining away content. Yeah, it's
explaining rather than letting stand. Explaining rather than allowing the revealing to take place.
Correct. So I'm fine to leave it there. This was an interesting essay. I do have a question about Heidegger's claim that what was it? The bomb's explosion is only the grossest of all gross conformations of the long since accomplished annihilation of the thing. By
Yeah.
the time you and I sit down to read this, Heidegger
Mhm.
is asserting that the thing,
Has
our
been annihilated,
right,
right?
our relationship to the clearing, if you will, right, our ability to have things revealed is gone.
Hmm.
That's already happened, according to
Hmm.
Heidegger, right?
Hmm.
So I'm thinking about this and I'm stepping away from the essay. This is just a question that was sort of in the back of my mind as I was reading it. The
Hmm.
jug works brilliantly as an example here because it is a decidedly non-technological thing, right? And he's looking at the bomb again as the symptom, not the cause, right? The fact that we
Absolutely.
sought that out is the problem because that is
Right.
domination at its
Right.
core.
Right.
I'm wondering if you were to try and push back against Heidegger and say, well,
Hmm.
no, we
Hmm.
have to work really flipping hard at it, but certainly there are, and you see it in many different areas of modern life, there are pushes to step back. There are urges to step away
Hmm.
from the rapidity of daily life.
Hmm.
I'm wondering,
Hmm.
can we be near
Hmm.
to technology? Because it seems to me that the very essence of modern technology is in stark contrast to what he's at. So this is sort of, I would say this is a test of his claim, but it's like it seems that every single modern touch point is in direct opposition to what Heidegger is arguing creates the thing. And so we end up living in a world of objects because there is no space for reveal. Here, I'm thinking this through as we go. This is my thought on my brain unwinding here, right? That we don't have a revealing. And if we're going to say, like my claim that our problem is that we're over explaining everything, right? We live in an information age, but there's not a whole lot of thinking going on. Like there's a ton
Right.
of information, but
Right.
there's not the time to process that. And so I'm wondering, can we get close to, I mean, is there a space for nearness with
Well,
technology? What do
you
you,
you know, I
that's my bonus
think,
question.
wow, bonus question. I don't know if I'm going to get any bonus points, but I would say, okay, it's a really great bonus question. Um, I'm going to slightly simplify it and sort of rephrase a little, like I said, making it a little bit simpler so I can take a pass at it.
Perfect.
But if I think at the core of your question is, how do you get to nearness in a technological age?
That's a better question.
Well, I don't know if it's better, but but I think if I make it cruder, I think you had a great question. But if I make it a little bit cruder, I think I could take a pass at an answer. And my answer would be this: I think that nearness, it's always possible to get near, uh, but it always requires you to do, for Heidegger, he would say, that are, well, I'm going to, I'll start again by projecting my idea of Heidegger into the current moment and not
Right.
his particular
Right.
moment.
Right.
Okay, Heidegger would no doubt agree and probably mourn the fact of what you said, that I mean, artificial intelligence. What is what's the intelligence in artificial intelligence? It's literally processing data. It's
Right.
literally
Right.
processing data. So we are quite a ways away, further along. We're much further along. So that, and our technology, our digital technology, is bringing things near and proximate and making things available to us in a arguably the same kind of fallacious way that the earlier technology, analog technology or whatever, was bringing things near to us. So uh, I think in the 1940s and also in 2025, is always possible. That said, I think he would say it's always possible to get near, but that one has to think and reestablish and create a clearing through thought.
Right.
And, that's always going to be difficult in 1945, because he feels that 1945 is a crisis and apocalypse, right?
Right.
He feel it's not like he feels he needs another crisis to feel that he's in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't need to know that there's a digital world and they say, wow, man, at least we didn't have the digital world. He thought they were already in an apocalyptic, as in end time state. So I think that he would say that thinking is always possible. And until I think now here's where it might get grim, is that if you are thinking, if you are saying, if you're asking, Michael, that, if we're in a position where we can no longer think about our proximity to things, then we are in a post thing essay situation, right?
Yeah.
Because in this essay, it is possible for thought to reveal truth.
Right. But yes, no, I'm not going to go the but. Yes, I think it's possible, even though he's saying, hey, it's past us. I think there's still the possibility.
Right.
I look at it when you jump forward, to the current state where we are lauding the development of technologies that relieve us of the burden of thought.
Thinking, yeah.
That this notion of nearness becomes that much more foreign.
Right.
And you see that even, the way that the vernacular discusses or engages these technologies, it's to free up space for you to do the things that you want to do, not
Absolutely.
the hard thinking that you
Absolutely.
that you need to do. It's boy, that's a downer.
Well, no, but let's not end with a downer, because on the other hand, this year, now we're talking about Heidegger. Maybe Heidegger is just naturally going to bring us down, but and you had mentioned this earlier, but thinking back, this is our episode 101, right?
Yeah.
So I would say in our last 20, 25 episodes, maybe even the last 50 episodes, I don't know how long, many, but probably the last 25. I think we were seeing a lot of people who were, as you were noting, pushing back, who were talking about slowing down, getting off the track. Anyone who is counseling, and I think we've been talking to a lot of people who are talking about reconnecting with environments, rethinking, not necessarily blowing up the digital, but rethinking its use or its functionality with among other environments, trying to reconstitute residual ways of thinking and being, like taste, in a digital world. All those efforts, in a sense, are trying to kind of clear a space for thought in the world. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of people who are pushing back.
I think you're right. You're right. And I don't want to say, oh, it's depressing, it's a downer. I guess to me, it all seems to always come back to the pharmacon, where you have, hey, here's the problem. Oh, but we can use the problem to help get us out of the problem. And in doing so, increase our reliance upon
the problem.
The
thing is causing a problem. Yeah. Poison.
So it's interesting. I mean, it's like, and it feels like a spiral that just continues to accelerate and burn hotter, I guess. But this was fascinating. I enjoyed it. I'm glad we did this episode. This is a good way to ring in the next 100.
It sounds like, yes, it was. Thanks for helping me through the reading, because it's always a little challenge to deal with Mr. Martin.
Yeah, but, it was good. It was good. Barry, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Critical Media Studies podcast. To find out more about the show, check out our webpage at criticalmediastudiespodcast.com.